Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you on Thursday, July 27th. And today, a quick video about a great resource and another YouTube channel that I think you'd be well served to check out if you're not familiar with it already. That's, of course, my dear friend Bix Weir. Actually, I haven't met Bix yet, although seems like the kind of guy I'd like to hang out with. And the main reason is because I didn't just wake up one day thinking I'm going to devote my life to rambling on and on about silver and spending most of my waking hours thinking about what's happening in the market, looking for signs about when the manipulation might be overwhelmed. And again, it's really just following a chain of events. If you look at what's happening in the economy, again, if you see that the US and the dollar are on this unsustainable path, and you keep following that through to see what has to eventually be resolved, to me, the silver market keeps coming up as the answer. So when I'm evaluating other financial analysts or speakers or whoever is talking about the markets, again, it's just my opinion, but if they're not grasping the silver situation, then not that it's not valid, but just that's, to me, in my mind, really so important of what's going on, which is one of the things that I like so much about Bix, is that not only was I really impressed with his understanding of the situation and what's going on in silver, although, goodness, I mean, he's actually been studying this for, I think he said since back around 2001. And some of the information he's uncovered is really fascinating. He talks often about how the silver manipulation actually goes back about 150 years, which is pretty stunning. And again, everything that I've heard him say that I've been able to verify so far has been pretty spot on. So I would tend to believe Bix is right about how long it's been going on. Perhaps more importantly, he has a lot of interesting information about some of the things that are happening now and might be happening going forward. I'll stick to two just to keep things short today, and then if you want to know more, again, we'll put the link to Bix's channel below. But two of the things that I found really interesting is he mentions that certainly we know there's the banks that are doing some stuff that I would say is maybe the opposite of good. Again, you can see my years spent studying the power of positive thinking, trying to phrase these things and keep a smile. It's not ideal what the banks are doing, although Bix talks a lot about how there's also the good guys on the other side, and how really part of the reason why the evolution or the eventual resolution of the silver market has been delayed is that some of the good guys, as he calls them, trying to build an infrastructure primarily through Bitcoin so that whenever the dollar collapses, it doesn't have to be complete Armageddon like many think. Certainly like I used to think for a long time. I used to be very fearful and worried about what's going to happen because on the face of it, it would seem like you would have to have something more severe than 2008. Although, again, yes, there's likely to be a significant adjustment that some will be able to handle, some might not. And I don't want to take that lightly. Although, going back to when you really can grasp the extent of how much life is distorted through this printed dollar currency, I think there's a lot of positive that will come out of the eventual resolution of this situation, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this dark Armageddon. I mean, just imagine for a second if you weren't paying half of your salary so that we could go send tanks around the world, or if you weren't losing 99% of your earnings through the inflation of the currency. So again, Bix has had some interesting ideas and really some great insight into things that are happening behind the scenes now. Certainly, if you just look at the market prices, it tells you one story, but for those who are digging around and thinking about what's happening beneath the surface, a lot of fascinating stuff. Which leads to our second thought of the day about Bix. Again, I'll just introduce the theory, and I'll put it like this. I don't know that at this particular moment I have the information to truly agree or disagree, although again, that's part of it, is that each person is different, although what I always found helpful during my trading career was you listen to people speak, you get a feel for them, you get a feel for who's consistently accurate, who phrases things in a manner that shows when they're saying, hey, maybe I'm speculating here, or this is fact, but really understands the difference between the two, because, there are things that I see that will give me certain opinions. Sometimes are right, sometimes are intuition, which is still valid, although that's different than something that I feel that I know for sure. So anyway, I'll say that my guess is, based on everything else I've heard from him, the stuff I'm familiar with, has all been pretty impressive. So with that said, what Bix has introduced is that Alan Greenspan, certainly quite an intriguing character already, although after you hear this, might blow your mind a little bit more. But Alan Greenspan, again, former gold bug, hanging out with Ayn Rand, then big-time money printer when he was the Fed chairman. Then since he's left office, it's been interesting because he's been critical of Bernanke and is talking about gold again, which I was always thinking, that's great, except how come the time that you had a chance to do something about it, he was printing just like all the other, especially more recent Fed chairmen. And what Bix lays out is that essentially Greenspan has been doing this intentionally so that it would lead to the collapse of the banking system. Bix asserts that Greenspan's actually one of the good guys and saw the behemoth that this banking, government, religion matrix has become, and actually set some of these policies in place so that eventually, one way of phrasing it, that the banks would eventually collapse and choke on their own greed, and transition us to, and allow that to transition us to a more stable system where we're not held hostage by this banking cartel, which, again, certainly if that's really the case, I remember I heard this for the first time a couple months ago, and it just jaw dropped. And who knows? I have a little more research to do into that on Bix's site. And by all means, I'm not telling you what to think here, except that it's certainly an interesting premise. And again, Bix is a really well-researched guy, and I found a lot of his information to be accurate. So I'll put it in the category of certainly has my attention, and would be truly stunningly fascinating if that is indeed the case, and that's why things have seemed so strange, especially around the Greenspan tenure. So with that said, we'll link to Bix's YouTube channel and also his website. I'd highly recommend getting on. There's a free email list where you get his videos each day, and I've been watching them pretty regularly and enjoying his content. So just wanted to pass that along. Again, I like sharing the things that I'm seeing, although I think one of the things that I've been fortunate to do well is find good sources of information that I can learn from and enjoy passing those along. Maybe some you'll like, some you won't, but certainly, in my opinion, worth checking out. And with that said, thanks again for watching. Appreciate you being here. Hit the subscribe button so that way you can know when tomorrow's video is posted. Come get some good information that like to think will help you transition through the exciting events that are coming in the future, so that rather than feeling like you got clobbered by the dot-com or housing bubbles, when the next situation arises, you can be prepared, ready, understand it, use it to your advantage, and continue just living your life, which I think is in the end what people really want, rather than feeling like the banks are going to come along and smoke the economy every couple of years. So with that said, again, hit the subscribe button, and we will see you again tomorrow. Thanks.